Okay, most often students ask me, Sir, tell me how can I improve or build up my vocabulary? Because whenever I just speak to people, I feel that I lack vocabulary and I am not that confident enough to speak to people. And because of this, I feel sometimes embarrassed and I don't feel so confident while talking. And so that is why, tell me, how can I improve my vocabulary? Okay, so dear, this may be your question too. I'm sure that you also come across situations like that, as many a times when you speak with people, you feel that you lack vocabulary and you are not able to speak that confidently just because of the lack of vocabulary. And most of the time, I'm sure that you might have thought about it, that how would you actually improve or build up your vocabulary? Well, first of all, I want to appreciate you that at least you have thought about it, because many a times students, they don't think that they need to improve their vocabulary as well in order to speak good English. Of course, they have a great desire to speak in English and they really want to speak English. But how will they be able to speak English if they don't have good words to speak? Because we know the importance of vocabulary. If we don't have good words, we don't know many words, sometimes when we are talking to different people or when we are in the school or in our office, because of the lack of some words, we get stuck. And those moments are very embarrassing, and that is why it is very important, we must improve our vocabulary. And this is just one area where most of the students or the English learners, they neglect. Yes, of course, they just go for the fluency and they learn a lot of grammar also, but mainly, they just neglect the area of improving their vocabulary. And that is why, when they speak to people, they're not confident. And that is why when they actually talk to people, they sometimes feel nervous and hesitate to speak sometimes. And this is all because they don't have good words to use, or in other words, they don't have good vocabulary with which they can communicate well. Now the question is how to improve or how to build up vocabulary in your language. Yes, this is the question, that we are going to answer today. Okay, now if you want to answer this question, you must understand one thing, that remember, English is a language just like your mother tongue. Yes, so as you are speaking your mother tongue with very good words and you have a very good vocabulary of your mother tongue, then why don't you think of improving the vocabulary of English in the same way as you did for your mother tongue, or as you did while learning your mother tongue? Okay, so if I would ask you one thing, then tell me, how did you improve your mother tongue? Or how did you learn your mother tongue, by the way? Or how did you improve the vocabulary of your mother tongue? Yeah, you must answer this question if you want to know how to improve your vocabulary, because if you are able to answer this question, I'm sure you will have the answer how to improve your vocabulary. You started learning your mother tongue since your birth. Yes, the day you were born, people started talking to you, although you did not know the language. Yet, you heard some sound, some words from your people, those who had come to see you, maybe in the hospital or at home when you were born. See, language is a process, and when you were born into this world, your parents, your relatives, and your neighbor all started speaking to you. Yeah, it is one thing that you were not able to understand those things, but at least you were able to listen to those words that they spoke with you. Those words sank into your mind and in your heart, and you started listening to those words, and your mind was trying to understand those words. And in that way, as you grew up, after 1 year or 2 year or 3 year, when you heard those words again and again, you were habituated with those words, and you felt comfortable with those words because all those words were very familiar to you then. And within just 3 years, you were able to understand those words, and not only just understand, but you were able to speak out or repeat those same words or the sentences while talking to people. This is how you improved your language, didn't you? Yes, of course. Then after 3 years, what happened? You went to school. You had some limited words or vocabulary of your mother tongue. But when you went to the school and you started, interacting with many students, many teachers, and teachers from all different places, and when they started speaking with you with the different words and different subjects, you could listen to some more words from your teachers and from the students that studied with you. And in that way, you just developed some more words in your language, and you came to know some new vocabulary, new words of that language. In that way, as you grew and grew and grew, you gained a lot of words of your language, and now you are comfortable to speak your mother tongue. Am I right? Yes, this is the same thing with everybody, including me. Because I was born and brought up in central part of our country, where Hindi was the official language. Yes, there was English, but in some specific sectors, like in the school sometimes, or maybe some official places, but most of the time people used Hindi as an official language. Since I was born and brought up in that environment, I built up my vocabulary, or I improved my vocabulary just by being in that environment. When we talk about the environment, it is not just listening. It is actually interacting with people, and where your all senses are used, like you observe people while speaking, when you listen to them, and you sometimes feel them while interacting with them. So this is what the environment I'm talking about. I grew up in that environment, and I was able to collect many words to speak Hindi fluently. Okay, so the more I was interacting with different people, the more I was able to improve my vocabulary, because everybody is different. They all, people are different. Their thinking patterns are different. And especially in India, when you talk about India, we have, diverse cultures, different people with different ideology and mentality, and they all have different words to speak to. And we have, of course, many languages in our country. So when we interact with different people, we just learn new words from them, because everybody has certain knowledge of the words, or they have good language. So when you hear from them, you yourself pick up words from them. This is what happened with me. So I improved my vocabulary of Hindi just by being in that environment of people who spoke Hindi language. Soon after my 12th, I just went to Maharashtra for my further education. So there, I could interact with many other people who would speak Hindi, but sometimes some people would speak Marathi as well. So, being in that Marathi environment, I could pick up some words of Marathi, and with the help of those words or sentences, now sometimes I'm able to speak to people of Maharashtra. So sometimes I am able to speak in Marathi, not maybe completely or fluently, but at least I have a bit of conversation with them with the limited sentences or words that I have. How it happened? It happened just because of the help of environment. Environment, in a sense, people, I mean. Yes, when you are surrounded by the people who speak the same language, you hear different words, you hear different sentences. So in that way, you build up your vocabulary. This is the very simple and natural way of learning any language. So I would encourage you, the first thing that you need to do in order to improve your vocabulary is to seek the environment of English. I mean, seek for the people who speak English. Yes, when you talk to different people, you will listen to different words from them for certain things, because you will come across with engineers, sometimes doctors, and sometimes students from different backgrounds. When you listen to them, you surely learn some words or some new words from them. So this is the most fundamental and the basic thing. I think that this is how you can improve your vocabulary in a very easy way. Now I'm sure that you would ask me, or you would tell me, sir, we live in India, and here people don't speak in English, so we don't have the environment of English. So how can we improve our vocabulary? Yes, I understand. Even I am also an Indian. I was born and brought up in India only. So how did I learn then? How did I improve my vocabulary then? And what about all those people who are speaking in English? Yes, they are Indians, not foreigners. They are Indians and they are speaking in English, and they have a good vocabulary. So don't you think that if they have learned or they have developed their vocabulary, you too can do the same thing? Yes, they also might have gone through the same situation as you are thinking of. So just learn, how did they do, or how have they done it? So in that way, I'm sure that you can improve your vocabulary, because nothing can replace the environment. If you have got the good environment of English, it is the plus point that you have, and this is what your bonus is. So always seek for people who speak English. In that way you can keep practicing English, and you can learn many words, and you can build up your vocabulary. But in some cases we don't have this kind of environment in our location or the place where we live in. That is why one of the reasons we have a practical classes here, where we provide good environment of English to the students who come and learn in Easy English India. So if you are not able to interact with us anyway, if you have any institution where you can learn or develop your language, so you may join there, but you have to see very carefully if they provide good English environment. I mean, if they speak in English all the time. Why I'm saying this? Because some of the English institutions, you might see in your location that although they promise to give you English coaching, or they just tell you that they would teach or they would help you learn English, but they always speak in Hindi. They try to communicate things in Hindi, and they make you understand the concepts of English in Hindi. And they say, you will learn English through Hindi or your mother tongue. So in that way, tell me, what are you learning? Are you learning English or are you learning your mother tongue? So in that way, how can you build up that environment there? How can you create that environment there, which is the root and the source of learning language? This is why we make sure in Easy English India, where our students come, that they all have to speak in English only. Although they are very fresh and they don't know how to speak and what to speak, yet we make sure that they have to speak only in English. But it is true that how can they speak in English when they don't know English? As I have told you that environment is the most important part of learning any language. See, I also told you that just remember how you learned your language. As soon as you were born, were you able to speak in your own mother tongue? No, you started listening first. Even before you observed anything, you started listening first. Yes, the first word maybe your father's word or your mother's word, I don't know what, but you might have heard something in your ears, so you started from listening. Yes, so the environment actually begins from there. So you need to understand that improving vocabulary begins from listening. The more you listen to different people, the more you will improve your vocabulary. And this is a saddest part among so many English learners, that they want to speak and speak, but they don't want to listen. And that is why their vocabulary is very weak. Why I'm sharing this? Because I am experiencing, or I have experienced a lot by looking at the students who come here to learn English. I often see that they are very much aggressive and are so excited to speak in English, but they don't want to listen. And sometimes I encourage them, and sometimes I just guide them. And I ask them, how can you improve your vocabulary unless and until you listen? Because listening is the input and speaking is the output. If there is no input, how can there be output? So this is one of the reasons why many people, they are not able to speak good English, or they're not able to use good vocabulary, just because they are poor at listening. As it is said that God has given us 2 ears so that we would listen more, and 1 mouth so that we should speak less. But unfortunately, this is seen that many a times English learners don't want to listen. They just want to speak out. Remember, dear students or the English learners, I'm telling you that if you want to build your vocabulary, build up your vocabulary or improve your vocabulary, you must understand this fact. You must spend time in listening more and more. Whenever you talk to people, listen to them very carefully. Listen as much as possible before you speak. If you have 1 hour of class, at least you should listen 45 minutes and speak just 15 minutes. Because listening is a major part of learning any language or building up vocabulary. Always remember how you improved your mother tongue. Okay? So, as you were born, you started listening to your parents, listening to your relatives, and in that way, you stored up the words in your mind. And after few years, you just poured out those words through your mouth. Yes, because all those words were stored in your mind. And nowadays it is not hard to have listening exercises, because we have internet available, we have many apps for that, and we have YouTube videos for that, and we have movies or cartoon movies. There are many stuff for listening, but unfortunately we don't take time to listen. Instead, we like to watch those things. So I would always encourage my students that they should spend time in listening more than watching. Yes, observing is very important, but listen. How did you start learning vocabulary of your mother tongue? It is by listening. So listening is very important. So use the internet or the videos that you want to watch and spend time in listening as much as possible. You can listen to news, or you can listen to some speakers who speak in English, or any stuff that is interesting or that you like to listen to. Okay, so don't neglect the part of listening, because this is the basic input through which you store up many words in your mind. Okay, now the second thing that I always encourage students to have it, that is reading. Yes, you have heard me right. Reading is also the essential part of improving vocabulary, because reading is an input. You know that? See, unless and until you have input, you cannot give the best output. So listening is the first input, and reading is the second input that you must have. But unfortunately, nowadays you don't take interest in reading, because as far as I have seen, many students, they don't take interest in reading books and reading stuff, maybe newspaper, or maybe some articles, or maybe certain books. Even on internet they don't read certain English stuff, and that is why they are not familiar with the words that are used nowadays among people. So dear students, if you really want to improve your vocabulary, please make a habit or develop a habit of reading as well. Now don't neglect the part of reading, because if you neglect the part of reading again, I'm sure that you will not be able to improve your vocabulary. You will be limited. Because remember, when you went to school, you got to read the books, and through reading you came to know many words from the books, and you developed your vocabulary by reading many things. Yes, reading helped us learn good language, and reading helped us learn good words. So it happened with your mother tongue, it happens with English as well. So if I would talk about myself, the moment or the day when I came to know that reading really could help improve my vocabulary, so I started reading books. Of course, it was not that easy to develop the habit of reading, but I started with maybe a paragraph first day. I started reading a paragraph, then slowly I developed the habit of reading 2 paragraphs in a day, then maybe a page I started reading. So slowly, within a month, I developed the habit of reading. After some times, when I could find out that I was improving my English, I was building up my vocabulary, I got interested in reading. So I started buying many books to read, and now I made a small library at my home, to read, and I spared time in a day to read at least few pages of those books. So now I enjoy reading articles, I enjoy reading books. So the same thing I would encourage you. Yes, you may say that I don't like reading books. Okay, see, if you want to gain something, you have to do something. If you're dreaming of having a very fine English and you don't want to do this, And how can it be possible? You will be limited. You will not be able to understand those things, which people are using, and they are using just because they have developed the reading habits. They are learning those words from different books, and those words they are using in their conversation. So this is one of the basic things. I suggest you that you develop your reading skills. You develop your reading habit, and in that way, you can build up your vocabulary. If you just neglect this part, the same thing will happen. You will not be able to build up your vocabulary. But I'm sure if you do this, or if you just develop the reading habit, you'll be able to use many new words in your conversation and in your speaking. Okay? So having good words or having new words is very important. So these are the two ways I told you. First is the listening part, and the second is the reading part. Okay, and these things will be more easy if you have got a good environment of people who speak English. Automatically you develop the words just by being in that environment. So I'm sure that whatever I have shared has helped you, and please do these things, and I'm sure that you will be able to speak good English, and you will build your vocabulary. So with these words, I just want to take your leave. Have a nice time.